How's it going?
Well.
If you were in the right place, we are here to talk about the core protocols tonight. Just a quick background on me. My name is Jade Meskill, for those of you who I don't know. I'm the founder of Integram. We're a company that specializes in really working with companies on radical cultural change. Right? We started out as mostly a software development company, so we really understand and are passionate about that world. But we work with companies of all types, helping them build really high-performing teams and changing the environment necessary to allow those teams to be created and thrive. Also the co-founder of Gangplank, so thank you all for coming to Gangplank tonight. So I want to talk about the core protocols. But before we do that, I just want to do a check-in with you guys. I want to see how you're feeling, how things are going, maybe get to know you a little bit better. We'll go from there. So how this is going to work is you're going to say something very simple. I feel mad, sad, glad, or afraid. One of those four things. You can choose multiple if you'd like. Or if you don't feel comfortable, you can pass. And you'll say why you feel one of those things. And you'll say, I'm in. And what that'll mean is you're here for the meeting, we're ready to start, and everyone else will say welcome. So I'll start so you guys can see how this works. I'm glad that I was able to come and teach this class tonight. I am sad that I did not promote it well. And I could have spent a little more time on that. And I am afraid that people aren't going to get what I would like for them to understand about the core protocols tonight. And I'm in. And now you all say, welcome. Welcome. Awesome. This is not a 12-step program or anything like that.
We don't have to do all.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. I did 3 of them. You can choose one or more. Whatever you feel comfortable with. So we'll just go around real quick, and whoever would like to start next, you can choose one of those 4 things or pass. But everybody has to say something.
You want me to start?
Sure.
I'm going to pass then.
All right. Are you in? You can say I'm in.
I'm in, yeah.
All right. Well, welcome.
Welcome.
I'll go down the line here. I feel very glad to be here, and I'm kind of sad I've been at Gangplank for a little while. It's good to be back. And, I'm in.
Welcome.
I'm glad to be here, and I'm afraid that Jade's going to ask us to do more things. But I'm in.
All right, welcome.
I feel glad that I'm here and that Gangplank is doing this for us. I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm Ann.
Welcome.
I'm Jay, and I'm very glad and I'm happy to be here. I'm in.
Welcome.
Go on.
Whoever wants to go next.
I'll go. I'm mad because I'm late and I don't know what's going on. But I'm picking up slowly here, but did I do that right? Or at least,
Are you in?
I'm in.
All right.
I'm not sure what that means, but
Nobody does.
Okay.
You're not lost. Don't
all
worry.
right.
Well, I feel low energy, and I wish I could hide in the back. But I'm in.
Welcome.
I feel good, and I'm in.
All right. Welcome.
Welcome. Go ahead.
I feel glad, and I'm in.
Welcome.
I feel glad to learn more about this. And I feel sad that I did not get here as much as I wanted to done today. And I'm in.
Welcome.
I feel curious. I don't know what this is about.
All right.
Yes.
And I'm in.
All right. Welcome.
I am extremely tired, but I'm here and I'm in.
All right. Welcome.
I feel mad that things aren't as good as they could be. I feel sad for everyone who came before today. I feel glad that at least we have a chance to make significant changes to people, society, things. And I feel afraid that we might not achieve a critical threshold or a tipping point to make it happen. And I'm in.
Great, welcome. So, how many of you guys have heard of the core protocols or the book Software for Your Head, any of those things? A couple of you, all right. How many of you guys have ever used the core protocols at work or somewhere else? So you guys can all raise your hand because one of the things that we just did was one of the core protocols called a check-in. Yeah, so now you're all veterans. You can all say that you've done it before. And we'll get into some more details about what just happened and what all of that means. But thank you guys for going along with me. And David, your fears are not unfounded. There will be more things to do. Nothing too crazy. So I'm just going to give you a quick history of where this idea came from, where all this crazy stuff happened, and talk to you a little bit about the structure of tonight, and then we'll go from there. So Software for Your Head is a book written in the mid-90s, I think published in 2002. Come on in. By Jim and Michelle McCarty. And Jim McCarthy had worked at Microsoft for a very long time. He was one of the kind of core team members that they hired on very early before they had significant growth. And he became a manager of a bunch of software teams. The most notable and successful was the Visual C++ team. And he learned a whole bunch of tricks while he was managing these software teams on how to build really great teams, how to get them to work together well, and really how to get them to overcome a lot of the, what he would say is irrational emotional transmissions. It happens anytime you get a couple of people together, right? There's a chance for that to happen. And so he learned a bunch of these techniques as he was going through, started documenting them, and a lot of them got built into the core Microsoft way of doing things. Eventually, he left there to start his own company, and they tried this really crazy experiment where they would take these teams, sometimes people from the same company, sometimes just a whole mishmash of people that would come to this workshop, and they called it Software Development Boot Camp. And they would take them for 5 days, and they pretty much owned you for 5 days. And they'd throw you into this environment where you had to come up with a product idea, build it, and try to ship it at the end of 5 days. And the whole point was to try to simulate a long cycle development project and cram all of the emotional things that happen on that into 5 days. And try to teach people what would happen. What was really great, though, is they realized that they could learn way more from the people that they were booting than they had to offer. So it was a really great relationship. They got to experiment with tons of things, and they had a whole bunch of teams go through this. So as they were doing this for every iteration, they were learning more, they were tweaking some of their ideas, trying them out. And what grew out of that is something that Jim McCarthy calls the core. And it's made up of really essentially a bunch of patterns, anti-patterns, some values that they believe in, and the core protocols. So the core protocols is one part of this thing he calls the core.
So Jade, just so I'm clear, they owned you for 5 days, and you went through this process, but were you doing it as part of a team, or were you doing it individually?
Yeah, so you were forced into this team environment. You might have some individual skills that you brought to the team, but it was a collaborative, cooperative thing that they would put you inside of.
I know you're about to talk about this, but what's an anti-pattern? Something that disrupts a destructive pattern?
Yeah, so basically what not to do, right? We can see a lot of those patterns in our daily lives, and we can say, oh, that's not what I want. So what's the counterbalance to that particular pattern? And so, again, they developed the core, by experimenting on a whole bunch of people, trying all these different things. And if you guys have never seen Jim McCarty, I highly encourage you after this to check him out on YouTube. He's a crazy, crazy dude. He will blow your mind. But he's somebody that I really respect. He really can see the future. There's something about him that he is able to understand what's going on at this really deep level. And we think he's crazy because he's like 20 years ahead of what's really going on. And so he figured a lot of this out in the early 90s at Microsoft, and is really just now starting to get recognized for a lot of the work that he put together, a lot of the things that he did. For any of you who are familiar with agile software development and that whole movement, he was really at the forefront before that even had a name or a thing. He started putting together a lot of these thoughts that inspired, some future ideas, and some other people really grabbed onto some of the stuff that he was doing. So, at the core of his idea, no pun intended, he had this thought that a team is just software. It's kind of a weird, radical thought, right? That he said if we really think of software as this malleable thing, we can turn it into anything that we want, and software has patterns and certain ways that it can interact with other software. What if we treated our teams as software, where we could create applications, we could create hacks to our team and apply them to people? And so it's a really weird concept to think about. If people are just software platforms that we can install new applications into, all kinds of things are possible. We can change our behavior. We can, Jim's goal is to change humanity. And so he thinks that everything that he talks about, everything that they create is really based on this premise, that we can reboot ourselves, reformat, change ourselves just as easily as we might change an app on our phone.
He's right.
Yeah?
Well, to what extent does he recognize fundamental patterns that pre-exist? Not at all. You can totally change who you are, he says?
He believes that you could completely reboot your operating system. Given enough time and creating the right program, right? The right set of patterns and the right code, you can change anybody into anything. Again, crazy, radical stuff.
Only in Western philosophy. In Eastern philosophy, they've had that the self is not persistent for a while. So
Sure.
If you have different bases of reality, it's not actually as far out. But to the Western philosophy,
for most of us, that's a hard concept to think about.
Concept from based on Western philosophy.
Yeah.
Well, there's other guys doing this as well, like if you heard of Richard Bandler and stuff for NLP, linguistic programming, same premise.
Yep.
That you can reprogram yourself.
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot of this.
Yeah, and he even says he's not the only person that's had this thought or said these things. He just happened to build something that is easy for us to replicate and share it with the world. Yeah.
Tim, would you repeat that about Eastern philosophy? I didn't quite hear what you said.
So in Eastern philosophy, especially like Zen Buddhism and things like that, the concept of the I am self, in the West we have this I think therefore I am, that the I am self is persistent. In Eastern mysticism it says that's actually not. The self is an illusion that's created by our ego. And if you can step aside of that, you can, we're constantly actually recreating ourselves as a new being. If we're really attached to the old self, then that's where we struggle and have these problems. But if you can flush your software and reboot, you can actually step aside from all those. And some patterns, my experience is that the way they do that is through retreats. You go spend 7 days in a monastery. And those things are like mind erasers. You step outside.
People assimilate culture, but can you take somebody with an 80 IQ and make them 160 IQ?
Oh, you're talking about changing behavior patterns and team dynamics, not IQ.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Then yeah, so the things that are kind of culturally assimilated as a person grows.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
can do that if you had alcohol.
That's right. or marijuana.
Only-
It
temporary.
depends on the team.
And it can go in reverse too.
I had a Zen master actually once say, if you want to disappear, get drunk.
Exactly.
Right.
Right, it's not hard.
Yeah. Interesting. So this is probably a good time to talk about how I'd like this class to go. I have a whole ton of material. There's no way we could talk about all this in 2 hours, and that's totally okay. What I really want to do is engage in discussion with you guys on how this could work in your life, with your teams, in your company, all those things. So we're not going to sweat trying to cram all this in. There's a few key concepts that I want to make sure we get through. But if you have questions, if we want to have discussion like we just had, totally fine by me, as long as that's okay with you guys. I'll keep plodding through some of this, but I'm sure we'll have lots of cool discussion along the way. So, if we think of team is software, and we are programmable beings that can, adopt new code. What Jim thought about was if a piece of software needs to communicate with another piece of software, there's some sort of protocol that has been defined, right? Some language that has been established that allows software A to communicate with software B. Right? Otherwise, they would have no way of interfacing or sharing information with each other. And so the core protocols are a human version of that idea. That if we have a simple, common way of exchanging information, it makes it a lot easier and quicker for us to really transmit what we're thinking, what we're feeling, and move quickly. We can make decisions quickly. We can be much more effective working together if we have this base set of assumptions and language that we can talk together. And so we'll get into what some of those very specific protocols are. He's drawn out a whole bunch that they were able to extract from their interactions during those boot camps that they had. But what he realized is, we'll skip that. We need more than just a set of protocols to communicate effectively with each other. We really need a shared set of values to build that on, right? And the protocols are built around this assumption that as a team, you've committed to these things, and he calls them the core commitments, and there's 11 of them. And so what I want to do for the first part of this is really read through these and talk about how you feel about them, what you think it means to you. And so the first commitment is really long. The rest of them all fit on one slide. So we're gonna dive into this one first, and it is the most important. And so one thing about Jim is he says a lot of things very simply, but they're quite profound. So if you look at just that first sentence, I commit to engage when present. That's a tough thing to do. Sounds really simple, right? That, well, I'm here, but am I really engaged?
Theoretically impossible for some people.
To engage while they're present?
Correct. Depending on, I know for children, depending on what their disability is. But yeah. But there are ways to increase the likelihood of engagement.
Yeah. So he continues on to say, to know and disclose what I want, what I think, and what I feel.
Is that relative to what it is you're talking about? You know what I mean? Or is this kind of like we walked in here and what kind of a mood you're in? You know what I mean? It's like what I want out of this conversation I'm about to have, what I'm thinking about it, what I feel about it. You know what I mean? What's the context for that?
Yeah, so if you were to ask Jim that question, he would say all things in life, right?
Okay.
But it's probably, so if we think about this in a team context, right, we're working together towards some common goal as a team, we need to be prepared to share these things with each other and understand what we want, think, and feel inside that context of that team, right? So it's kind of like, it's like an onion, right? There's lots of different contexts that will change what you're thinking, what you're feeling. I might feel differently about something that's going on at home than I would at something on that I'm dealing with on my team, or our product success in the marketplace, those kind of things. But really, this is talking about self-awareness, right? I should be aware of the things that I want, that I need, how I'm feeling at the moment. I should be able to not just recognize them, but disclose them. And that's where things get tricky, right? How many of you really feel like sharing all those things with the people that you work with all the time? Yeah. So
I tell my clients they're dumb all the time.
they're dumb, yeah. So to always seek effective help. Not just help, but effective help.
That assumes you have an awareness of whether you're getting closer to what you want to get to.
Yeah. It's hard to get effective help if you don't know what you want. To decline to offer and refuse to accept incoherent emotional transitions.
Transmissions?
That should be transmissions. Yeah. So to decline to offer and refuse to accept incoherent emotional transmissions. None of us have ever offered an incoherent emotional transmission. So
I think that was one of the things my dad really taught me very well as a child was, you know, if I came to him with a fit, like that was not worthwhile transmission. But if I came to him with a purpose and a practice of this is what I want to do and this is how I want to do it, then he was like, let's do it, not a problem. But if it was just a screamy fit, not going to happen. Sorry.
Yeah, and this could be interpreted as suppress your emotions, right? And that's not what the intent of this is. Jim himself is a very passionate, very emotional person. It's the incoherent part that we need to be in command of, right? That actually makes us disrespect our true feelings if we're being totally incoherent.
What's a technique that might be an example of that? Blah, 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 ramble. Hey, crazy person, go in the other room till you're better?
Or if I start crying, right? Just, and it's I'm totally incoherent. I can't make sense. I can't articulate my feelings, but I'm clearly, like, irrationally upset. Right?
So what would refusing to accept that mean behaviorally? What would I do?
Are you going to try to console that person? Are you going to try to just say, well, tell me what you want. Tell me what I can do, right? I might be unintentionally validating some of that stuff that's going on, right?
Right. So what's the appropriate response
to doing with that?
Yes.
We'll get into some of that. So that's built into some of the core protocols of how to deal with this. As a person who's in either side of that equation, right? Maybe I'm offering incoherent transmissions. Maybe I need to remove myself from the situation, right? Until I can be rational and come back and explain what it is that I really feel.
I've done a lot of experiments on children related to math, and I thought math was an intellectual endeavor. It's about 80% emotional.
Yeah.
So first step one is to achieve the proper physical and mental state for your brain to function.
Yep. Yeah, I do a lot of work with software developers, engineers, those type of personalities who people might think that they're robots, right? And they're not. They're some of the most emotional people I've ever seen, and they just have no idea how to deal with it, and how to express it properly, because they've suppressed it all their life. And so these are some tools that can help them, and seem to resonate really well with that type of personality. So let's move on. When I have or hear a better idea than the currently prevailing idea, I will immediately either propose it for decisive acceptance or rejection, or explicitly seek its improvement. So have you ever kept your better idea to yourself? Maybe it wasn't politically the right time to bring it up, those kinds of things. Yeah. So this is a two-way agreement, right? If we're going to work together, I need to accept that you might have a better idea, and you need to have the not just the courage, but really the insistence that you disclose that better idea.
Well, the whole key of this is it can't be just the one person on the team that's incorporating this.
Right. Yeah, nobody's going to like you very much if you're the only person living by this.
Especially if you change yourself every other day.
Yeah.
Or think you're a little crazy.
It's hard, I can tell you from experience, it's hard to like each other when you do all honor this stuff. It goes against a lot of our human nature.
Well, immediately proposing it might not be the right venue either, right? I mean, you might
That's true.
continually be changing the topic, or you might get off track if you were to immediately propose it, even if the other party were following the same protocol.
Yeah.
If everyone's shouting, you're not going to, you're right.
Yeah.
If it's constantly, I mean, this must be kind of, you have to honor it at some time.
And he'll give you some tools to deal with this, but he really would insist that you immediately disclose that, hey, I have a better idea, or I think I have a better idea. And we'll talk about some
But you're
ways.
saying always without exception.
Yeah, these are pretty hardcore. I will personally support the best idea, so this is the counterbalance to the previous one. I'll personally support this best idea, regardless of its source. However much I hope an even better idea might later arise.
However much it sucks to everybody.
And when I have no superior idea. So I'm sure we've never judged an idea based on who said it. We've never been able to admit that I don't have a better idea. And so, this is the best idea that we have, yeah.
Just an anecdote. Fenneman, is that how you pronounce it? Richard Fenneman?
Yeah.
He mentioned that they had like the top 5 guys who ran the Manhattan Project. Each one listed their idea, and the guy in charge said, well, obviously idea number 3 is best, so let's go. And he said he had never seen it before. He remembered everything. Everyone agreed immediately, and they moved on.
Yeah. So this is core commitment number 1. This is the most jam-packed one of them all. Any questions, any other thoughts on this first commitment? Okay. This is number 2 through 8. So I will seek to perceive more than I seek to be perceived. What do you think that means?
You gotta listen.
Listen more than you talk.
Yeah. You ever work with those people who want to make sure that they have your attention? That you know that they're in the room?
Call it giving a lecture.
Yeah.
Project management lecture.
Yeah.
Here we're all gathered. We're all going
Yes.
to,
Yeah.
give the
And
guys-
really I should be shutting up and listening.
Yeah.
So number 3, I will use teams, especially when undertaking difficult tasks.
That's a big one. That's a hard one.
Yeah? How so?
Well, a lot of times individual contributors are used to just going at it on their own, and they hack at it, they may be stuck on it for hours, but they're hack at it instead of asking for help.
So why do you think he insists that he says I will, not I sometimes will, I will use teams, especially when undertaking difficult tasks?
Because we're always better together.
Yeah, synergy. You build off each other. 2 people can do more than the work of 2 people. Faster. It compensates you for your deficiencies, greater insight.
I've seen you need 3. In most work environments, especially big corporations, you need a minimum team of 3 to actually move the boulder that's currently rolling. Because it seems like that's, in my experience, in critical mass for large projects. It's like 1 person isn't enough because that's just kind of 1 person being a crazy person. But if you have 3 people, now you actually have momentum that they've actually created in the 3 of them to push things along.
That's the human aspect and the knowledge as well.
Have you guys ever seen the difference between a group and a team?
Yes.
Do you know what is the difference between those 2 things?
So a group of people, like each kind of go in their own direction. A team actually has a coherent direction. They are able to find a gray area. So you have a bunch of people that are all black and white. The team is actually able to find the gray and then find consensus and move forward.
But that can also be the dangerous area also. sometimes a group can create the best team. Sometimes when you have these cohesive teams moving forward, they become a one thing instead of the creative ideas of the group.
Yeah, groupthink, dangerous. Yeah, the simplest explanation I've seen is the difference between a group and a team is a team has shared accountability and really share a sense of that shared responsibility, what they're doing. Where a group might not quite feel that, right? We might be assembled together and told that we need to do this thing, but unless we have all collectively accepted that responsibility, you know, assumed that the weight of that responsibility, we're not really a team.
That fits in with what came before as far as sharing. Like you're thinking, oh, that's a horrible idea. I'm just going to keep it to myself, or I have this thing that's probably better, and I'm going to watch them crash and burn. Versus committing yourself.
It's my duty to say that I think this is better. It might not be better, but I need to say it. So I will speak always and only when I believe it will improve the general results to effort ratio. Yikes. So what does that mean to you?
You would have to understand the people in the team for that to be implemented effectively.
How so?
If you said stuff and you weren't sure whether other people were going to understand it or were able to receive it at that time for whatever reason, you wouldn't say it at that time.
So if I'm going to throw them into confusion and chaos, probably not the right time to say it.
Even if it was right.
Yeah, either.
Yeah, what he said.
Okay.
I mean, examples like that when people are lobbying for making comments just so they can get on somebody's good side or toadying or whatever, it prevents. I would think it tries to ensure that comments and will only help with the project, not side chat.
Yeah.
I would add, does that include like an emotional regulation, like a little joke and stuff like that? Because I think that would help many times.
Might, right?
Sarcasm.
I can make a joke that would improve our effort ratio, right? Might lighten the mood of the team and break some of that. Sure. But if it's distracting, probably shouldn't say it.
What I hear out of that is saying something that you think, or I think, is a contribution to whatever the intention of the team is.
Yeah. So there's interesting wording that it's always and only. That's a weird dichotomy there.
Doesn't that require evaluation of the results of what you're going to say before you say it?
I think that's part of it, is don't let your mouth go faster than your brain. I know a lot of people that are in that situation. So, but there's this feeling that I'm compelled to say it, right? If I believe that it can help us get somewhere faster, I have to speak my mind. There's no option to hold it back. But I need to consider, is it really going to help before I say it? So it's an interesting balance there. So I will offer and accept only rational, results-oriented behavior and communication. So we're back to this rationality.
Not getting all points of view.
What's that?
Not getting all points of view.
Not taking all points of view?
Yes.
Just to take them, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever been in a meeting where we have to go around to the circle and listen to every single person's point of view because we can't leave anybody out, right? I mean, it's probably a waste of everybody's time.
What if you're not sure?
Well, if they have something that they believe will improve the results to effort ratio, they need to speak up and say it. I will disengage from these productive situations when I cannot keep these commitments and when it's more important that I engage elsewhere.
That's a pretty powerful one, actually. Yeah.
What is that? How does that speak to you?
Well, from one, if you can't be in a clear place, just remove yourself from the situation is always the best situation until you can, catch your breath, so to speak, and back and be more abstractly. The other thing is that if, you know, it is truly wasting your time and you have more pressing things, walk away, say, okay, I'm not adding value here, I'm leaving. Go.
Yeah, just focus where you can do the most good, is that basically
Yeah.
right. Saying?
And how many of us are brave enough to stand up in the middle of the meeting and walk out? All right, we got 2.
Productive could also be defined as like a social glue.
Yeah.
You know what happens afterwards? They don't. Is the people that waste your time stop inviting you to those meetings.
Yeah.
But they also then start saying that you're behaving irrational because you made a value judgment by walking away from them.
It becomes a political thing at that point.
Yes,
If someone that, you know, that says, okay, stop wasting his time, right? They trust that person, they know they have a good opinion. If you're doing that, then that's your problem, not theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, some people do that, and often those people that are time wasters don't like that because they just got called out, and they actually probably are adding no value in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the other stuff. This would be unnecessary, I assume, if the other stuff was done correctly. So what you're doing maybe
Possibly.
is
Might be necessary. I might be in an irrational state of mind, right? For whatever reason. Something you said really pissed me off, and I just can't respond to that in a way that would honor the rest of these commitments.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to leave.
Recognize when you're not functioning correctly, change, get out of the environment. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's also, in some companies, a cultural thing. You're invited to the meeting. If they don't provide you an agenda or let
Right.
you know why it's important for you to be there, then you have the right to not even show up
Yeah.
or decline.
Yeah. Like it's
You know,
hard.
Make a
Like,
decision
it's-
before you even go in that door.
Now you're rude, and all those things start to happen.
Not
Right?
a team player.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's a good story of Steve Jobs. He was like intolerant of people wasting time at meetings, and so they had this new girl show up, and she showed up to the meeting, and he basically looked at her and said, "What are you doing here?" She said, "Oh, I just thought I'd come." He said, "Get out. You don't need to be here. Not only are you wasting my time, but I'm wasting your time." So he had a very low tolerance for this kind of stuff, and he would just walk away. So I will do now what must be done eventually and can effectively be done now.
So did you guys go back to the get things done?
Yeah, it is. It goes back to that quite a bit. Right? If I know it has to get done, and I can do it right now effectively. If it's going to take me 2 minutes to get this thing done, and I know it has to be done sooner or later, I might as well do it. Right? We might as well get it done and move on.
Would you change effectively with sufficiently?
No,
Okay.
no. Because if I'm not doing it to be effective, I'm probably violating something else that we've agreed to. I'll seek to move forward towards a particular goal by biasing my behavior toward action.
That's the iteration cycle.
Part of it. I'm sure we've all been in meetings to plan a meeting.
Procrastination. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not action. Right? Planning another meeting is not the appropriate action to take.
If anything's worth doing, it's worth doing for it.
All right, let's move on to this is number 9 and 10. I will use the core protocols or better when applicable. And the sub point on that is I will offer and accept timely and proper use of the protocol check, which we will talk about without prejudice. The protocol check, just real quick, is a way of really asking someone if they're using the protocol correctly. It's very easy to get offended if somebody asks you that. So that's pretty much how it is, and it can be taken that way.
Yeah.
That's why it's part of the core commitments to say, I will accept it without prejudice, right? I'm not going to get mad. I'm not going to think you're insinuating something, any of that. I should assume that you are genuinely asking the question if I'm doing this correctly.
Or if you do get mad, you can walk away.
Yeah, maybe I need to do that.
Has anyone been in Toastmasters?
Yeah.
So I have their concept there, positive criticality. People don't get offended, where everyone's there to help each other.
Yeah.
And so you got stuff in your mouth and you stutter, and they ding a bell every time you make a mistake.
Yeah.
Because everyone's working together to make each other better.
Yep. They shouldn't get pissed off at that. So I do find it interesting that he said core protocols were better. He made sure there was room to adopt and grow, and he knew that he didn't get them exactly right. So number 10 is, I will neither harm nor tolerate the harming of anyone for his or her fidelity to these commitments. What do you think he means by that?
It's a safe environment. You do these things, and you can't hold it against it. For doing these things, even if it's harsh, like the one calling somebody out on violating a protocol.
Yeah. So I commit to not doing it, and I'm not going to let you do it to somebody else either. So the last commitment is by far the most difficult one of all, which is why he saved it for last. I will never do anything dumb on purpose. And so Jim McCarthy's famous for saying, I challenge you to do this. If you don't do anything else, do this for 1 hour. Says, I bet you can't do it.
Number 11?
To not do something dumb on purpose.
Okay, what does that mean? You have to know that it's dumb before you do it, right?
We do dumb things on purpose to ourselves all the time, in the way that we act and react to everything around us. Right? So it's a funny thing to think about, but man, it's true. We do a lot of dumb things on purpose. So those are the core commitments, and like I said, this is something that, as a team, you would all collectively agree to uphold, right? And to hold each other accountable to living by these commitments. They're not easy. My company, my team has been using these for a couple of years now, and we have maybe implicitly agreed to hold these things up, but we haven't actually sat down and said we are going to hold each other accountable to these things, because they're scary, really scary to do it well.
Some of them you really couldn't implement. Like, a better idea, if there's 8 people, there's going to be different abilities and capability to recognize that.
Yep. And we'll talk about some of the tools that are available to make that an easier thing, right? And so that's really, these crazy ideas, these hard to achieve concepts are supported by some very simple tools that have been created through their observation. So we're going to talk about some of the protocols. Like I said, we probably won't get through all of them, but I try to put them in the, at least in my opinion, the most to least important order. So the PASS protocol is one of the most essential protocols. It gives you a way to decline to participate. There's probably times where maybe you don't feel safe in sharing something or participating in some action. And so this protocol is used in other protocols. So that's the interesting thing about the way these work. It really is like software. The PASS protocol can become part of the check-in protocol, like we saw when we checked in today. Right? I shouldn't force you to disclose your emotions if that's something that you can't do right now. You can't do safely, right? And so passing is a way to decline. Now there's some interesting things, and there's lots of walls of text, and I'm not going to read them all to you guys, so these are here for you to look through. But the key thing to passing is once you pass, you are no longer a participant in the decision, the conversation, whatever is happening, until you unpass. So I might decline to participate because I can't, and then I got over whatever it was that I needed to deal with, and now I can tell the team I unpass, and now I can resume my participation in that particular activity. So some interesting things. So the steps here, this is how the protocol would be enacted. The commitments are things that we are going to hold each other accountable and responsible to. And there's a whole bunch of this stuff. And so one of the main commitments is holding that reason for passing private. I don't need to share with you why I'm declining to participate. That's probably not appropriate at this situation because I need to decline to participate. And so I'm also not going to ask you to explain yourself, right? So if you said, if we had done that check-in and you said I pass, and I said why? Why do you pass? You know, what's going on? Tell me more about it. That's probably becoming incoherent very quickly. So I'm not allowed to ask you why. I just need to respect the fact that you passed and move on. You know, that's what is important, and it's really hard to do. Do not judge, shame, hassle, interrogate, or punish anyone who passes. We had a hard time with this one when we first started trying to use these core protocols together. We'd give people a hard time for passing and for not sharing whatever it was that they were feeling. And it took us a while to really learn how to respect each other.
Right.
Yeah.
So a question for, and maybe you'll touch on this a little bit later, but with regards to the passing, is there something in place to, if it's a group discussion trying to come to a consensus, make a decision, someone decides to pass because they didn't like the question or whatever, if at the point they unpass, can they be held accountable for whatever it was they were passing on? Does that make sense? Have you seen that people
So if I ask you a question, or you ask me a question, and I am not in a place where I can answer that question, right, and I pass,
yeah,
and then eventually I come back and I say I unpass.
Yeah, because you want to come back and now you want to vote and say, okay, now I unpass. Is there anything to prohibit me from going, okay, well now let's circle back around to that thing that you passed?
You could certainly try, but I could pass again, right?
Okay.
That might be real close to the hassle.
So yeah. I guess there's maybe it's a distinction between passing and checking out.
Yeah, okay. and we'll get into what checking out is in a little bit. Yeah, there is a difference between the two. So one of the other commitments is, as soon as you're aware that you're going to pass, you need to pass. All right, don't hold it secret and try to get as much of the whatever it is that you want to get, and then say, oh, I pass. Right, that's a pretty passive-aggressive way of dealing with whatever's going on. So let's see. So here's an interesting thing: is in general, you'll not be in good standing with your core commitments if you pass most of the time. So while we will respect each other, and I won't judge you or harass you, you're probably not honoring our core commitments if you are always passing. So if we're doing a check-in, and you will never ever share your feelings on something, you're probably violating something in those core commitments. That you're not disclosing what you think, what you want, what you feel.
Is it okay at that point to invoke shame?
No, it's never okay to go to shame. But you might have to have a different kind of conversation with someone. So the other note is there is one protocol that you cannot pass on, which is the decider. And we'll get into what that means. You can pass even though you've already started something. So I might have started this whole brouhaha, and now it comes back around to me. It's still safe for me to pass. So we'll talk about the check-in. I had you guys do a check-in when you got here. You had no idea what was going on. The check-in is a very important and pretty easy tool to bring in. A lot of people start meetings with something kind of like this, right? We might say, give me one word that describes how you're feeling or something like that. But this particular check-in protocol is pretty strict in how it works. And so you say one or more of mad, sad, glad, or afraid. You're limited to those 4 things. And what Jim says is really everything that we feel can be distilled down into those things. We might use substitute words. I think it talks about. I might say, let's see, happy instead of glad. Right? That's okay. We're not here to make you say exactly the right word, but it's the same emotion that we're talking about. And so in the flow that we had, I had you guys say that. A brief explanation if you would like to. and you can say I'm in. So what this means is this is a way to officially say that I'm part of this group, this team, this meeting, whatever it is that we're using the check-in on. I can either be in or I can be out.
Is the check-in usually relevant to what the meeting's about?
It can be. It doesn't have to be. We could have a check-in about just the team in general, right? But it's usually best used to start something, right? It'd be kind of weird to just bring it up in the middle of the day.
Well, there's, like in math, I used to do Simon Says, or yoga, or in judo, you bow before you go in the room because you're leaving the outside world outside.
Yeah.
So you're entering a new realm.
Yep.
But
yeah, maybe there's some agreement that if you enter the team space, you need to check in, right? So that everyone knows you're in, and you're here, and you're ready to be fully present. So Jim has an interesting saying real quick, and then I'll take your question. That says the only remedy for distance is presence. And so the check-in is one good way to deal with that. Whether you are physically distant from each other or emotionally distant from each other, the only way to fix that is to become present with each other. And so this is a good way to really get a pulse on what's happening, what are people feeling. I learned a whole bunch of information in the check-in that we did just a minute ago from just some of the small things that you guys shared with me. Hold on, let me take your question first. Yeah.
I'm sorry, because it's just getting a little confusing about the pass and the check-in then.
Okay.
The check-in is more of a formal acceptance into the team, or where a pass is more during a...
Yep.
Okay.
So think of the pass as like this little tiny protocol that I can use inside of other protocols. I would never, there's no way to use a pass by itself, right? I think that's where you might be asking the question. So a check-in is actually like an action that we're going to take in which I can pass. I can never do a pass just by itself.
it may sound strange to some people, but hugs work for that too. So actually physically present touching.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
I've actually found hugs generate oxytocin.
Really?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
After 6 seconds, like 6 seconds.
Yeah.
Does that include those Japanese pillows that hug you?
I think it's human to human.
Yeah, okay.
So there's a couple of commitments around this that are really important.
Thank you for qualifying that.
If you say, I'm kind of glad and I'm sort of mad, you know, those are not, you're not really honoring your true emotions. And so that's when he says state your feelings without qualification, right? I'm not going to say, well, I'm just a little bit mad about this. No, I'm mad. You can only talk about your own feelings. So I can't feel something on your behalf. It's not my place. I need to be quiet and listen to what you're saying. And I can't talk about your check-in without your permission. So if you say you're mad about something, and now I want to talk to everyone else on the team about, you know, what you were mad about, that's not right. I need to get your permission to say, hey, you said you're mad about that. Can we talk about that? Can we talk about that right now and figure out what are we going to do to deal with that? Or, you know, maybe you're glad about something. Hey, let's talk about that a little bit more. But it's not my place to comment on whatever it is that you've just checked in. So let's see. Anything else on the check-in? It says checking in with 2 or more emotions is the norm. And so this is really to prevent shallow check-ins. If I just say, well, I'm glad to be here, it's probably not getting to the depth of what's really going on. If we're in this team working together environment, I probably need to get a little bit deeper. And so what he's found is by using 2 or more of these emotions, you start to get some more depth to what's going on. So I might be glad to be here, but I might be really mad that something else happened yesterday. And so that's going to help expose some of that, some of those feelings, some of that information. And like I said, you can use happy or scared instead of afraid. It's not about the word, it's about that emotion. Let's see. So any other questions on the check-in itself? Cool. All right, so let's talk about check-out. Check-out is a very, very essential part as well. Right? If we're going to honor the core commitments, we need some way to get ourselves out of a situation where we might become irrational or incoherent. And so this says you must check out when you are aware that you cannot maintain the core commitments. And so it's really simple. I say, I'm checking out. And then I leave. That's it.
No buts?
No buts, no explanation. It says you can say when you believe you'll return. So if I'm not checking out for an emotional reason, but my wife just called and something's going on and all that stuff, I don't need to sit here and tell you about that. I need to say I'm checking out, but I'll be back in 15 minutes, right? And I can leave and I can come back in and re-engage with the group, right? It doesn't always have to be this big emotional drama. I might just have to leave because it's better for me to be elsewhere right now.
So again, comparing to the past, when you pass, you've taken you're not participating in a conversation, but you're not removing yourself from
I'm
the
still physically
conversation.
present. Yeah.
And a checkout is removing yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm leaving.
I'm assuming the pass, you're probably going to re-engage. The checkout, I think of riding the surfboard. Everybody's on one surfboard. And you're riding the wave is the communication, the process, the goal, the end result of what you're doing. You're checking out, you're going to mess up everyone, so you're out of it.
Yeah.
And pass is, I'm kind of bubbling and I'll be back in a second.
Yeah, say we're doing a check-in, right? And I've had just a really terrible day, and I just don't feel like saying any of that stuff. I might pass, right? But I'm not going to leave the check-in. I'm still in, but I passed on sharing that particular emotion. If I'm so mad about what you said during your check-in that I'm about to say or do something that is totally inappropriate, I probably need to check out and remove myself from the situation because I'm about to not honor the core commitments that we've made. So I don't know if that helps or not. So you can't chase the person down. If somebody checks out, you can't say, but wait! It's tempting to do, right? I want to know why you're checking out. But we can't do that. We got to let them go. And hope that we'll be able to figure that out later on. And so as a person that's checking out, I'm committed to returning as soon as I can if I'm able to resume keeping the core commitments. So that might be days, depending on what just happened. But it might be minutes. So it says return and check-in. So if I check out, say we've done a check-in and I've had to leave for whatever reason, we're in this meeting. When I come back in, I'm going to invoke the check-in protocol. So I'm going to say, I'm mad that my wife just called and interrupted me for this, and it was for some dumb reason that she could have waited till later, but now I'm back in. And again, do not judge, shame, hassle, interrogate, or punish anyone who checks out, and that is really difficult to do. It's much harder to do this than it is over people who pass. If people just leave, that is pretty shocking. It's hard for us to accept that, you know what, it was probably better that they're somewhere else right now. It's hard to take that on faith and trust.
That indicates a failure and a requirement for change on an individual that left or the team.
Not necessarily. It means that they had to go.
Yeah.
Well, yes.
We always assume the worst.
You're right. I meant that.
That's a whole story you just created about this
You're right.
scenario.
You're right.
A total invention.
I might need to go to the bathroom.
That's right.
I might not be feeling well.
Your car's on fire.
Yeah.
Right. I'm assuming that
Could be something
if they left it for a emotionally traumatic reason that was caused within that environment.
And so that's part of this commitment, is that we're not going to assume that that's the case. Right? I'm not going to make an assumption that maybe I'm running this meeting and you check out. Well, now I'm off the stop at you because you checked out.
I think that goes back to one of these other steps, that you are going to make that emotional commitment. You're not going to sit there and let yourself wander of all these bad ideas of why someone checked out. You're going to stay emotionally committed.
Yeah. Yeah, think about it. When he talks about incoherent emotional transmissions, how much of that do we just make up on our own? Right? We assume, we imagine, and now all I can think about is how mad you are about everything that I just said, and the company's going to crash and burn. Oh my God, I've created this entire scenario when you just didn't feel good, right? Or you really did need to be somewhere else.
Well, that's taking things personally, right?
Yeah.
It really has, them leaving has nothing to do with you, one way or the other.
Yeah.
That's not.
We have to make that assumption.
Yeah.
That's the case.
Trust would be one way to deal with a lot of that.
So let's see. So when you check out, do it as calmly and gracefully as possible. I've seen some very, very ungraceful checkouts.
Can we restart it?
Let's just say there's more words to it than I'm checking out. Right? Yeah, pretty much.
Was it Derek?
No comment. That means yes. So again, if your emotional state, whatever is going on, if you just can't deal with it, or if you don't know what you want, you need to remove yourself from the situation. Again, check out as an admission. You can't contribute right now. It's just saying I can't be a part of this right now. I need to. So the decider. This is a very useful protocol. I've used it with a lot of teams without even telling them about core protocols, anything like that. I've taught them this thing. So it's pretty simple. I say, I propose something. So I propose that we continue having this class, right? And then I'll say 1, 2, 3, and now you're going to vote yes, I want to continue having this class. Yeah, I'll support still having this class. I'm not against it. Right? Or thumbs down, I think we should not do what you just proposed. And so we vote simultaneously so that we don't let the vote of someone else influence us. And there's a couple of things that happen now after we vote. I'm gonna look around the room, and I'm going to figure out how many thumbs up, thumbs down, flat hands that we have. And I'm going to do a few things. So if you're an absolute no, so if there's no way on earth you're going to convince me to do whatever you just proposed, I need to disclose that right now.
Take off all your clothes.
Yeah. And so I'm not going to do that, right? And so now the proposal needs to be withdrawn. So please withdraw your proposal.
Please don't take off all your clothes.
Yeah, I disagree with that though. Sometimes, no.
Well, wait, maybe you'll change your mind if I did take off my clothes.
What I mean is that sometimes it's that someone is truly visionary in the group and pushing forward with a proposal is what makes truly successful teams, is that someone sees something other people don't see.
Sure.
And sometimes it's that person being strong enough to push that idea and make it happen, and people afterwards go, that was a good idea. I mean, Steve Jobs is a classic example. A lot of people never would have known the ideas that he put forward if he didn't have that strength of personality to push them forward anyway.
Yeah.
And people went, oh, they were good ideas afterwards.
Yeah.
So,
Steve Jobs did not support the core commitments. We'll just say that.
And so you're saying that you would walk away if the majority were a go, but you had a firm not committed, you walk away?
The proposal's withdrawn at that point. Right? And so we'll talk later about what to do from that point, right? What do we do? So I need 5 victims who want to participate in something else. See, there is more participation. If you just want to come up here, and we're gonna practice this real quick. And so what I have is a slip of paper that I'm going to hand you that's going to tell you what to do. And I do need, let's see, 1. Yeah, I need 5. So I need 2 more people.
How many of us?
All right, you're going to be a victim all day.
Social courage.
All right. So let's see.
However hesitant, though, right?
When you sit it up,
Can I use it?
you're just going to pick one of these at random.
I haven't met an American who could successfully do it.
I don't want to try, I just want it.
All right.
It work like that.
So pick one of these slips of paper. All right, there you go. So take a second to read what's on your card. And what we're going to do is we're going to imagine that this is a team here, and somebody is about to use the decider protocol. So we have a decision that we need to make. It's a very important one. Wait till you hear it. And I've given each of these other people some role to play in making this happen. So this is improv, so have at it.
Has someone got the idea?
Somebody's supposed to be doing something. Somebody should be proposing.
I propose that we erect a spaceship using only macaroni.
No, that's not the proposal. Read your card.
I like it. Mine just says wait.
Okay, then you're not the proposer.
Okay.
Who's the proposer?
I propose that we go to the bar after work.
All right. So I kept this one simple. This is not a major decision that we need to make. But all right. So now there's a proposal on the table. So you've now invoked the decider protocol, right? You've made a proposal. Now you're going to count 1, 2, 3.
All right.
And you guys are all going to vote. So remember, thumbs up is yes. Flat hand is I'll support it. Thumbs down is no, not going to do it.
All right. 1, 2, 3. Wow.
3 smart people.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you got 3.5.
So if you're an absolute no, now you need to disclose that I'm an absolute no.
I am an absolute no. I am not for it.
All right.
Okay, so let's pause. We'll take a time out right here. So thank you guys very much. I will be calling you back up in just a second.
So can you ask that person to check out?
Throw the check.
So the decider is a special protocol where we can't leave. We have to have unanimous support of what it is that we're doing, but we can't move forward. Now, we could wait for him to leave and then propose it again later. That might be the way to go.
Forced checkout.
Okay, so now we're at an impasse, right? We just saw that happen in that very simple scenario. And so now we need to do something about that proposal. So we could have withdrawn the proposal and said, okay, never mind, I don't want to do it. But it's not going to get us anywhere. Right? We're never going to accomplish anything if I can just block everything you want to do by putting my thumb down. And so there's something called the resolution protocol. And let's see, we'll pull that up here. So the resolution protocol gets invoked when we have somebody who declares that they're an absolute no. I'll say, what will it take to get you in? And now the responsibility is on me as the no voter to give you a simple explanation of what it would take to get me in.
Everyone else pays.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I want to vote no now.
You never know, right? There could be something else that's going on that's, preventing that person from agreeing to whatever proposal that you have. So if we could bring our wonderful actors up here again and go back through that scenario. So we've proposed something, and now the votes are out on the table. And so let's invoke the resolution protocol to figure out what we can do. So you voted no. You said you're an absolute no. Proposer, what are you going to do?
So,
what would it take to get you in?
What would it take to get you in?
Well, I'm sober 7 years and I don't drink. So, it would take me probably not drinking and sitting in the back and watching you guys turn into much more lighthearted people.
So that's not really an actionable thing that you just said, right? So what would your proposed alternative be to his proposal?
That we go to maybe not a bar, but maybe a sports grill, so that there's a little bit of distinction between the bar environment and the food environment, I guess.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So now you're going to modify his proposal a little bit and say, well, if we could go somewhere that wasn't just alcohol, maybe I could get in. Right? So now you have a choice, and we'll look at that real quick. So you can now adopt his changes, or you can say, I withdraw my proposal. Right?
Okay.
So what would you like to do from here? So he said to get him in, it's going to take going somewhere that's not just a bar.
Okay, now we had one flat vote also.
Mm-hmm.
Do they do anything about that?
So a flat vote means I'll support it. Maybe I'm not enthusiastically for it, but I'm not against the decision.
They're undecided.
Nope, it's not undecided.
No.
It's uncourageous, not undecided.
So that's a good point. That doesn't mean I don't know. It means I'll support what the group wants to do, right? Maybe I'm not super excited about going to the bar, but hey, if everybody's going, yeah, I'm in.
It's neither a yes or a no.
It's still a yes, but it's a soft yes.
It's a maybe.
No, it's not a maybe
No,
even. It's I agree to support your decision.
Yeah, to go with the flow.
Yep. But I'm not enthusiastically for it, but I'm also not going to sabotage it or say no. So there is no maybe in the decider. And we'll talk a little bit about what happens if you
Is
get
it
a
okay that approve the change of going to Coach Willie's?
So now you want to make a new proposal.
Make a new proposal?
You can, or you can say I withdraw my proposal.
Okay.
If you really want to go to the bar, and that's it.
Am I supposed to say that?
Now we're truly an improv. So now what do you say? So he said, to get me in, it would take going somewhere that's not just a bar.
Okay.
What do you want to do?
So you propose to go to some place that is not just a bar, that has food and stuff as well.
So
1, 2, 3.
Hey, so now we've made a decision. All right. Thank you guys. You can sit down.
Nice work, team.
So.
But it'd be quicker just to go screw you or go to the bar.
You could do that, but that probably wouldn't be very nice to your team. You wouldn't be honoring the core commitments that you've made to the rest of your group. It's probably going to leave that person feeling pretty bad and left out. Right? You just said, well, then forget you. I don't care that you're 7 years sober. Yeah, that's not my problem. So that was a very simple and kind of silly situation, but the decider, if we were to play that out in real time, they were able to come to a decision pretty quickly, right? They're able to see where there was opposition, identify what ways we could overcome that opposition to the proposal, and now either make a new proposal or I quit, right? I'm so invested in whatever I propose that I'm not going to take any modifications. I'm going to withdraw my proposal.
So one of the commitments is if you have a better idea, you immediately put it on the table.
Mm-hmm.
So could he not just said that?
Yeah, so during the decider, there's no discussion.
So that's an exception to one of the commitments.
But if I have a better idea, I can say no.
This is a process thing, right? Really, because it would come up. You would get the opportunity to do that by being the no guy and getting asked, right?
It's not like
you wouldn't have your opportunity to.
So that's how I disclose my better ideas. I can say no. I propose we do something else. Or I can say no, I'm an absolute no, and you can say, well, what would it take to get me in? Well, I think we should do this, right? And now, as the proposer, I can decide to say, oh, wow, that is a really great idea. Or I can say, you know what? No, I'll withdraw my proposal.
So I guess I can see that. I can see that playing out in many group situations when we're trying to decide where to go to eat.
Mm-hmm.
Say, rather than going back and forth, and, oh, well, I have an idea, and I have an idea. It breaks it down to, okay, I say we go to Coach Mullis. Yes or no? If you say no, you have to have a reason.
Yep. So this is a great time to, I'll jump ahead here. So one of the cool things that is starting to happen now is this idea of hacking your own protocols, right? Creating your own protocols. So Jim McCarthy's creating something called the App Store for your head, right? So if teams are just software, why can't we have an app store where we can get things? So we actually invented the meal decider because we had this problem all of the time. We had a team of about 20 people, and we had vegans and crazy stuff going on. We could never decide where to go eat. And so we came up with the meal decider. So we took the decider protocol and made some slight modifications to it to help us make those decisions. So we changed a couple of the rules that made it much more efficient. Instead of having to have this, well, are you an absolute no, blah, 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 we're just trying to make a decision about where to go eat. It doesn't need to be too complicated, right? So if you vote no on the meal decider, you have to immediately propose a different place to go.
Nice.
Yeah. And so we've done this, and we are now able to decide on where to go eat in a matter of seconds, right? Usually. We've had a couple of days where we've gone, I kid you not, about 20 rounds of no's to finally get to some place that we could all agree to go to. But usually that's not the case. It's usually pretty effective. I might say, I propose we go to Coach and Willie's at noon for lunch, you know, and I'll get thumbs up and some flat hands, and now we go, right? So that was a good suggestion, and we've already gone down that road. And so other people have created other hacks on some of the other programs to try to spread some of these ideas, and that's unfortunately hasn't released the App Store for your head yet, but it's coming soon. All right, so let's get back to the decider and the resolution protocols. They're very much tied in with each other. So there's a couple of things. Is I need to give my full attention to this proposal above anything else that's going on. So as soon as somebody throws out a proposal, we need to stop and we need to vote, right? And the thought here is sometimes it takes us so long to make decisions that if we were to just say it, vote on it, and move forward, we could make much more effective decisions instead of debating and arguing and all these things forever. So we might be in the middle of an argument and I say, I propose that we do this. Right? Now I can get a stance on where everybody feels, right? And so can you. So if we're arguing back and forth and I say, I propose we do this, and 90% of the team votes yes and you vote no, now we all know where you stand, right? And now you can decide, well, what's it going to take to get me in? Right? If I'm against whatever it is, now I can explain to the team, well, this is what I think we need to do to get there. Right? We can cut out a lot of that BS that goes on when we try to make decisions as a group. Right? Humans aren't very good at making those kind of decisions. So some of the other, preventing some of those incoherent emotional transmissions, you keep your reasons to yourself. You don't need to explain why you voted the way you did, none of that stuff. So here's a really challenging one. Be personally accountable for achieving the results of a decider commitment, even if it was made in your absence. So if we have, as a team, have agreed to the core commitments, and some decision came up while I was on vacation or whatever, or just out of the room, right? I need to trust that my team did the right thing, and that they voted in the right way. So if we make some decision about a feature of the product, right, as the result of a decider, I need to be fully supportive of that idea until the time that I can make an ulterior proposal, right? I can propose that something else, we should do something else, right? And now we can, again, vote, move quickly through making a lot of these decisions.
Ulterior, you mean an alternative.
Yes, sorry.
Right.
I can make an ulterior too,
That's
probably not very nice.
Don't you let that person know that you changed the feature?
Yes, that would be my responsibility as a good team, right? To let somebody know, hey, while you were on vacation or while you were sick yesterday, we decided to make this
Give you a pay cut.
I think that's in here. Yeah.
You make $10
So it says, keep informed about decider commitments in your absence. So it's not just on my team, but also on me to say, hey, did we decide anything while I was gone? And so that I'm aware of what happened. So you can't argue with people, and you have to actively support the decisions reached. So this is where the flat hand becomes important, because if I say I support it, I need to actually support it. This isn't a maybe, this isn't a kind of sort of, if I really don't believe in whatever is being proposed, I need to say no. I have to say no, and I have to be ready to, if I'm an absolute no, say what it would take to get me in.
And if you're not, what do you say?
If you're a no, but not an absolute no, you probably need to think about why you're not an absolute no. Right?
So I guess I just don't understand the difference. A no is kind of a no, isn't it?
Yeah, but if I can't tell you what it would take to get me in, I'm probably not really a no, or I'm incoherent. Right? If I just say no, but I can't explain what would make me a yes.
Well, you said don't explain, just propose something else, right? Or
Well, so if we go to the resolution protocol and I say what would it take to get you in, and now you can't tell me?
But you said you don't have to explain yourself.
Right.
The explanation
No.
becomes inherent to the new proposal. Because
The explanation comes in the resolution protocol. So you could say no, and I could say, okay, I withdraw my proposal. And now we didn't have to have any drama, no emotions about why you voted no. You didn't have to explain yourself, any of that stuff, right?
But when you're explaining the alternative, you're also giving kind of the thing that concerns you. This whole thing, the thing that I see about this is you're trying to reach consensus. And consensus has a lot of advantages, but it doesn't mean it's the best thing. If I say, I propose that we spend 36% of revenues on print advertising. So everybody says, let's say everybody else has a, I'm sorry for my cell phone being on, by the way. If everybody says this is a horrible idea, or I'm sorry, everybody says this is a good idea, then the natural tendency when you're dealing with consensus is to try to come up with some kind of a compromise. So I might say, well, what if we only spent 12%?
But I can't say that. So if I invoke the decider protocol, I can't try to try to convince you to get in. Right?
If I say I'm a no, and you say, what does it take? And I say, well, only spending 12% is what it would take to get me to say yes. Mm-hmm. That's still a really bad idea. But in order to achieve consensus, people might say, okay, we'll still spend 12%, which is still a horrible idea. I would be very, very, very against 12%.
Maybe you need a new team then. Yeah.
If we all say yes, then we believe that was the best decision.
Fast, probably anyway, right? You got a room full of people that are making bad decisions all the time.
Right. So let's say you still believe that 12% is. So let's say people on your team are making these proposals, right? So somebody has proposed that we spend 36%. Somebody else says no. You might also say no. But they ask the other person, they say, oh, I think we should spend 12%. The proposer says, great, I think we should spend 12% of our revenue. You can still be a no against that decision, right? So now a new proposal has been created. I can also say no. And then they're going to get around to you and say, well, what would it take to get you in? And you can say, I think we should spend 1% of our whatever, right? And now they can choose to accept that or not. The proposal either has to be withdrawn or has to be modified.
So can I be a good team player saying, I don't think we should spend any money on print advertising. It's really, really a bad idea. There's no way you could get me into this. I'm going to stop any money going out to print advertising at all. Wouldn't the perception, if everybody thought it was a good idea, of me among those team players be that I'm very obstinate and someone who... So
if we go back to the core commitments, right, and we've all agreed that I will support, where is it at? I will personally support the best idea regardless of its source. However much I hope an even better idea might arise or when I don't have a better idea. If we've agreed to that as a team and we violate that, then we have not honored our commitment.
But he does have a better idea.
Well,
not spending money on print advertising.
The difference is...
But what if we don't agree with that?
Well, then you're wrong.
Yeah.
Right. That's the whole thing.
You're right.
And that's where you need a strong leader, like, who would come in.
So I'm just going to force you to do it?
Well, in some situations.
So that's not a very good. That's not a very good team behavior.
Yeah, but companies are rarely democracies.
Right. You're talking about consensus. Yeah. That's what it looks like it is. I doubt it functions like that.
It's not. It's not consensus. It's a unanimous decision.
Well,
and that doesn't always work.
He said consensus. It implies what the implication is, which I assume is not how it functions, is that everybody's equal. Everybody's not equal. One person has more experience, and hopefully when they bring up the options, they say, no, I don't think we should do this because of this, this, and this, and here's the things. And probably a lot of the decisions get made based on that and the trust of the person involved, but there's a group commitment towards doing it. I mean, if the basis is everyone knows the same amount of stuff about everything, obviously it would be dysfunctional. Right. But I think it's a social management tool.
But if I've invoked the decider, right, I've said in this group, in this context, we need to come to a decision. If I don't actually want you to make that decision, I shouldn't have invoked the decider.
I think it's just a little confusing because, you know, we're doing a meal, but a lot of these decisions are after you've really had communication with your team about certain subjects before you would just randomly make a decision on something, right? I mean, I would hope that you had discussed how you want to advertise as some part of a team before you ask for a decision to be made on that subject.
Right, so it's not, I think we should spend, I propose that we spend 36% on our print advertising. That's not realistic, right? I'm not going to just
Into
bust
a
in the
room full
door.
of people who don't know about it or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Hey guys! I mean, I can do that, but I'm probably going to get a whole lot of no's.
What do you like?
Right?
We're joining the circus.
That's when you can invoke shame.
There's no shame.
Jay is totally into
There is
this.
not a shame protocol.
Everyone is
Sorry.
shame.
There isn't one.
So this is probably a good time to introduce the next protocol, which would be the investigate protocol. Right? This is a simple one. Act as if you were a detached but fascinated inquirer, asking questions until your curiosity is satisfied and you no longer want to ask questions. Right? So if, let's just say we go back to the scenario. Somebody has proposed that we spend 36% of revenues on print advertising, and you say no. To get me in, we would have to spend 1%. And now the proposal has been withdrawn, right? Because I can't agree to that. Well, now I can say, you know, what is it that you've discovered? What is it that you know that might help me understand why you think we should only spend 1%? Right?
And I say, so-and-so used print advertising, and now she's dead. So are you allowed to
So we're gonna
shame
die?
people who use really
Well, and I can
bad
say-
anecdotal evidence?
Sure, I can say, how does that correlate with her being dead, right? How does her, I'm a fascinated but detached inquirer, right? I want to know how print advertising killed this person.
Right, that could be serious.
Right? Yeah, maybe like it toppled over and I don't know. I'm going to ask a question from, we have to assume from a genuine perspective, right? I want to know how somebody died spending all their money on print advertising. And I'm going to keep asking those questions until my curiosity has been satisfied. And now maybe we can create a new proposal.
The way you phrased that question I thought was excellent, because most people don't ask it. They ask a question, it's actually a statement. Why would you think that?
Yes. Let's see. There's a note about this. Ineffective questions. Questions that begin with why. So, look at all these ineffective questions. A leading question. I might have an agenda, so I'm going to ask you a leading question. I might try to trick you or dissuade you from answering something that you believe is true. Questions that invite stories. Holy cow. Right? Sometimes we can open up this giant thing. And questions that begin with why.
Any
You
question
did that.
actually
You want
is
to know how she died.
Yeah. So I didn't ask why she died. I asked how did she die by spending her money on print advertising.
Actually, you asked how a big story behind it.
Yeah, he's just
Could be.
invited the
No,
story.
you established an emotional state to make sure that he knew you were coming from the true inquiry perspective, not a judgment perspective.
Right.
And then you proceeded with the question.
Right. I didn't say that's stupid. How did somebody die? Bringing their...
That's interesting. You're a smart person and I respect you.
Right.
I would like to be like you.
Yeah.
Tell me how I can reach the same perspective as you have.
Yeah.
Or,
All right.
you're crazy.
You don't have to explain yourself. You just check out. All right. So, yeah. So here's some sample ways of asking these questions. What about X makes you Y, Z? What about spending print advertising makes you whatever? Could you explain a specific example? Right.
That could lead to a story.
Yeah, it might. We're not always going to be able to avoid all that. How does X go when that happens? What's the one thing you want most from solving X? You know, all these kind of questions that are still open and honest questions that we are genuinely, trying to understand, trying to get more information to help it make sense to us.
Why not a story?
Because if we go back to the decider,
Is
right?
it time?
If we want to immediately and unanimously move towards results, and you tell me an hour-long story about your cousin's uncle,
Yeah, that's just a time-related thing.
yeah,
So you can do stories.
we're not getting to where we need to get to.
As long as you keep the time. I've facilitated different groups, and people don't like it, But you can pretty much say what you want to say in less than 5 seconds if you think about it before. I cut it down to 30 seconds. Everybody can do that.
Doesn't mean you have to be terse and
Yeah,
personal.
everything covered.
But I don't need to tell you this long, elaborate story. I mean, how many times is there a story to lead up to the story to actually get the information that we want? So, so questions on this kind of triple combination of decider, resolution, investigate protocols. We beat that horse to death. Thumbs up. All right. I propose that we move on to the next protocol. 1, 2, 3. All right. Protocol check. All right. So we talked a little bit about this one. This is a scary one. So it's very easy to be offended when somebody protocol checks you. That's why in the core commitments it says that we will accept it without prejudice. Again, we have to assume that the intent of the person is saying, maybe I don't understand the protocol that you just used, so I'm going to protocol check you so that I can get the proper explanation of how it works. Right? If I try to pass during the decider, I might say protocol check, and someone will explain, oh, during the decider, you know, there's no passing allowed. Everybody needs to vote. You know, thumbs up, flat hand, whatever. So this gets used in times where people are improperly using the protocol. Right? Again, going back to the idea that these are well-established ways of communicating effectively with each other. If somebody in the group is not doing it right, this might be the time to rectify that situation so that everybody knows how to properly use this protocol. Excuse me. Any questions on that?
Can you check out in a decision? No. No passing, no checking out.
Not while the proposal is on the table.
So
I might check out after I've voted, but I have to vote.
So what you check? All of this is a method of optimizing social performance. And it looks like one of the core assumptions is that the people involved in it have some form of emotional management in order to effectively implement.
Yeah.
Self-awareness in the group facilitates that too.
If somebody in our group doesn't, then it's my responsibility to say, you need to check out, right?
So you can still throw them out.
Can't throw them out. I can't make you check out.
Make them aware so that facilitates them.
You say protocol check.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to check.
Yeah, my protocol. If we're in the middle of a decider and you start going crazy and saying all these things, I can say, well, protocol check. The assumption is we've all agreed to the core commitments and we've agreed to use these protocols correctly with each other.
1, 2, 3, and then I have a decision about religion and politics. Everyone should check.
Yeah. But yeah, if I was just including someone into a group randomly who wasn't committed to these things, it's not fair to expect them to honor all of these commitments. So a couple of the commitments, we're going to support anyone using the protocol check. Again, we have to believe that they probably don't understand it, they've forgotten how it works. Whatever it is, they're not doing it to be a jerk and make some sly accusation that you don't know what you're doing, right? Because you threw out the decider incorrectly, I'm going to protocol check you, and now you're going to get offended that I've done that, right? I can't shame or punish anyone. Sorry, Jade. No, it's no shame. Again.
It sounds like it also lowers the threshold. When I've worked with groups, most of it's emotional management to facilitate the interaction. It makes those people who tend towards that aware to externalize that and makes them more aware of themselves.
Again, this is not to suppress your feelings, it's to treat them respectfully and everyone else around you respectfully.
So, at the beginning, you said there was a 5-day boot camp. Was it just to learn the protocol?
No, the boot camp was really, these emerged out of the boot camps that they did. So it was really for them to help teams understand what it's like to be on a high-performing team.
So they were studying group dynamics, and this was a result of this.
Yep, and teaching them some of these techniques, but really extracting them from what was going on.
Jade, have you seen this implemented in something shorter than a 5-day time frame?
Yeah, doing these and agreeing to these does not require that 5-day boot camp. right? That's an experience that you can choose to go through to what Jim McCarty calls get booted, right? And it's a way for him to share all this with you, get it in your head, and now you can say that you've done it, you've learned it, and all that. But that's not required to agree to the core commitments or use the core protocols. That just takes an agreement of you and your team saying, we're going to do these things.
Well, I've seen something you guys have produced in like less than 12 hours that I thought was awesome, which is that Hoopty app.
Yep.
And were you using this same framework?
Yeah, we've been doing it for a long time, so we've already kind of gone through a lot of these experiences as a team. And so it was my team that I work with every day coming together and building a product in 12 hours. We didn't have to go through a lot of those challenges that other teams might, because we've already been through them. We've spent years dealing with all of our other emotional baggage and problems and all those things, right? So we didn't have to learn it in 12 hours. We could put them into use effectively in that 12-hour period. And we did. We did check-ins, we did check-outs. We had, I mean, we've been working together for years, but you know what? People got pissed off in the middle of developing that product and had to check out.
I thought it was awesome. And for those of you that don't know what it was this app that went out to Craigslist and pulled out these low-priced cars and parts of cars in a very clean way of sorting through and sifting those items. I thought it was phenomenal.
Yeah, we participated in a thing called Startup Weekend. If you're not familiar with it, it's 54 hours straight of product idea to demo.
Or you're into your 12 hours.
Yeah, we did it 12 hours and left.
Wow. Was that the Phoenix?
Yeah, it was here at Gangplank.
The 12 hours probably included the beer runs.
Yeah, I don't think we drank it all.
It seems like there's a lot of verbal stuff in here. I'm surprised that he doesn't mention physical. Because essentially what you're doing is managing your chemical state. The fastest way to do that I know of is exercise or ingestion. So breathing, eating, drinking, or doing something physical.
Yeah, and so part of this, I'm just giving you an introduction to some of these things. The book that he's written, Software for Your Head, it goes into far more detail, psychologically, all kinds of things about what's going on while you're using these core protocols. What are things that might happen that are anti-patterns if you're trying to use these? All that stuff, far more detail in
I didn't see it on Amazon.
It is on Amazon. Look up Software for Your Head by Jim and Michelle McCarty.
Oh.
Core Protocols is the subtitle of it. There's not a Kindle version. It was published long ago. I keep bugging him to get an ebook put out. But there is, that just reminded me, there's the core protocols themselves and the core commitments are under the GPL license, so they're free for people to use, and there's actually a PDF that you can download from Jim McCarthy's site that outlines all the stuff. I just stole them right from that document, all the stuff I'm showing you here. All laid out, and it's 9 pages. It's pretty short, of the core protocols themselves and the core commitments. The whole book itself is actually also freely downloadable as a PDF. So they don't have an ebook version, but there's a PDF version of Software for Your Head. Okay, so any questions on the protocol check? This is an important one as you're learning how to use the core protocols, to use them with each other to make sure that you're doing it correctly. So sometimes the protocol check leads to me getting mad, in which this is where the intention check comes into place. If you have said or done something, I might wonder, why are you doing this? Why are you saying this? And so now I have the ability to say, what is your intention with doing that? You just deleted a bunch of code out of our repository. What is your intention in doing that? And now it's on me to ask, or to respond and let you know, well, my intention was, I was in the middle of doing this and I blah, 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 right? We can explain what just happened. So this is very important when you are, when you're not sure what someone's thinking, what's going on. It helps us, helps prevent us from assuming the worst. All right? So I can straight out ask you, what's your intention by doing this?
It helps people think better. My intention was to embarrass you and make you feel bad.
Yeah, that might be true, right?
Yeah. Well,
and I'm probably going to think different about that the next time I try to do something like that. So some of the caveats are, be aware of your own intention before checking the intention of somebody else. So if I'm intention checking you, but my intent is to embarrass you or do something else, there's no reason that you can't intention check me back, right?
And what I do is, my intention is to serve the person and to help them, and so then everything goes away.
Yeah.
I want to help you do what you're saying, so help me to help you so I can understand you.
Sure. So it says, make sure you have an intention to resolve any possible conflict peacefully before intention checking someone else. So if my intention is not peaceful, I need to check out. I can't intention check you because I'm trying to do something malicious to you. And the hard one is to not be defensive when somebody checks your intention. I've had this happen to me. It is really, really hard to not get defensive about it. It's hard to not become overly emotional about, why are you questioning what I just said? Right? I've had it happen a lot where we've done some sort of communication via text, right? Email, group messenger, whatever it is, and I totally understood what my intention was, and it was correct and all that stuff, but whoever read it totally misread what I was trying to say. And so instead of fuming and getting mad and going and talking behind my back and all that stuff, they could just say, well, what was your intention by saying that? Oh, now I can explain what I meant, and we can come to a much more peaceful resolution very quickly, instead of the alternative that happens a lot.
I've had this happen before, equivalent of it. I need a fish. Person buys fish, goes away, comes back. This fish doesn't work. I need another fish. Does it several times. It's, well, what are you using the fish for? To chop down a tree. So people, they do this all the time. They glom on to the how something needs to be done. And if you can ask them their intentions, what do you want to accomplish? Then you can facilitate them in a more effective path to achieving that end.
Yeah. And that would go more along the investigate protocol, right? I might ask, what is it that you're trying to do with this fish? What do you want this fish to do for you? We can accept some of that. But if I ask you for a fish and you give me a shark, I can say, what was your intention in giving me a shark?
To fight through that tree.
And so if some conflict arises out of an intention check and you just can't deal with it, you need to check out. You're not going to solve that problem today.
But then you can also say that the shark was part of the better idea.
Yeah,
right.
My intention was I thought I'd give you something that was more aggressive, and then now I can say, well, that's not what I needed, right? I needed a goldfish, right? And we can work it out. So questions on the intention check?
I like it.
All right. Ask for help. So this is a simple one that is hard to do, which is, it is my responsibility to ask for help when I don't understand something that is going on. Or I really genuinely need help. I've worked with a lot of software teams where it is shameful to ask for help, to admit that you don't know something, some programming language, some construct, whatever it is. It's very difficult sometimes to truly and genuinely ask for help, right? I might say, well, I'm having a hard time getting this done, blah, 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 tell some big story about why my work isn't complete. And then later on I'm going to get really mad because nobody helped me, except I didn't actually ask for help.
Is there a protocol for offering help?
Not necessarily. I think in here it talks about you can offer to help essentially at any time. Right?
Standard management technique with shame. Can you do this? Well, this is too hard to do. Oh, I'll get a better engineer to do that then.
Yeah. So this is pretty simple. I say, so-and-so, can you help me do this? Right? Trish, can you help me set up the room before the class starts? She can agree yes or no. Or say, no, I can't, but, Ida can. And so we'll get him to do it. So what's important here is to have a clear understanding of what you want. right? If I don't know what I'm actually asking help for, I probably shouldn't ask for help yet until I get that figured out. If I can just say, will you help me? And I can't tell you with what, I've got to get it figured out. This top commitment is very important. Assume that all helpers are always available and trust that they accept the responsibility to say no. How many times have we not asked someone for help because we think that they're too busy? Right? It happens a lot. It's really easy. Did you have a comment, or did you just raise your hand in agreement? All right. I know I've done this all the time, right? I just assume that they're too busy to help me, so I just don't say anything. Right? And so part of the commitment is that we are going to assume the opposite, that everyone is always ready and available to help me, but if they're not, they're going to say no. I've fallen into the other trap where I really have not been able to help someone, but I felt bad saying no, and so I've caused some other problem somewhere else by spending my time helping them when I should have been doing something else. I should have said, no, I can't help you right now. So again, say no anytime you do not want to help. That doesn't say, it says if you do not want to help. If you don't want to help someone, you need to say no. You don't say yes just to be polite if you really don't want to help them. If somebody tells me no, I probably shouldn't get upset. Right? I need to not freak out that you told me no, that you couldn't help me. Offer your best help, even if it's not what the asker is expecting.
There's no room for passive aggression there.
Yeah. Have you ever given someone like kind of halfway job, right? Because they asked you for help, and oh man, I know that they'll accept this mediocre quality, so I'm just going to give it to them to get them out of my hair. Right? This says that the onus is on you to help them to the best of your ability, to do the best job that you can to give them the right help.
But that's one of the protocols, right? The one of the commitments.
Yeah, we'll use the best ideas, right? But there's a lot of times we could get away with not giving someone the best help, right?
Well,
they might not expect it.
I keep going back to a lot of these things, they don't work without those commitments.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very hard to use the core protocols without the core commitments.
So I think, I've also seen it go the other way. I tend to be a perfectionist, so sometimes I'll put in way more effort for something when they want something very simple.
Sure.
So, oh, well, I just needed you to screw in the light bulb. You didn't have to completely redo it.
So this says your best help, not your most help, right? So that becomes on you to say the best thing that I can do right now is give them this simple solution. Do not apologize for asking for help. I don't know how many times I've heard that, oh, I'm sorry, I need to ask you. No, I'm not. You shouldn't be sorry. You need help, ask for it. If we're working together as a team, if we're trying to get somewhere, and you don't know how to get there, I expect you to ask for help, and we will move forward from there. So you should never apologize for needing help.
What I was talking about when I was talking about passive aggression is if you think that they're just not up to the task because they're inferior in some way, what you might perceive as your best help is something that actually tries to convey the skill, tries to teach them, and that's just going to make the person feel inferior. But you're trying to do it for a good purpose, but it's not going to come off that way.
Depends how you do it,
Yeah, if I do it in a condescending way, like, move, you're too dumb to do this, right?
Condescension always exists in someone's head, not necessarily in your. People don't decide, I'm going to be condescending. They may decide, I'm going to make it feel bad, but their intention isn't. Condescension is in the person who perceives its head.
So if I've asked you for help and you've agreed to help me, and I feel that you're being condescending to me, now I can intention check you.
What's your intention by teaching me how to do such and such?
Well, what's your intention talking to me that way, right? Or what's your intention with, you said you were going to help me, but now I feel like you're just talking down to me. Right? We can now use some of these other protocols in combination to figure out what's really going on.
You respect the individual, hopefully that wouldn't come up.
So asking for help is a low-cost undertaking. Sometimes it feels like it's high cost, but it's pretty easy to ask for help, and the worst thing that can happen is people say no, right? I haven't lost anything other than now I know that nobody's going to help me do this. So I've got to figure out how to do it on my own. You cannot over-ask a person for help unless they've asked you to respect a certain limit. Right? If I ask you for help every 5 minutes and you said, you know what, maybe like once or twice a day, now we've established that limit. But don't create a self-imposed limit of asking for help. So if you don't understand the value or feel it would be useful, blah, blah, blah. So if somebody says, I'm going to help you, and you don't understand how they're going to help you, now you need to start using the investigate protocol to start asking them some questions about what's going on, what's happening. So asking in times of trouble means you waited too long. Ask when you were doing well. And let's see. I think that's it. So personal alignment, we're running low on time, so I'm going to go quick through this. Personal alignment is a huge one. This one could take you days to achieve, which is really, he has a simple process that you go through to really figure out what it is that you want. And so the formula goes, I need to identify what specifically do I want, what's preventing me from having what I want, and what virtue, if I had it, would remove that block. And so the virtue is really defined as, it's not working. My computer's not working. Let's try this again.
Maybe you should intention check it.
Yeah, I should. What is your intention by not working for me? Let's see. So let's talk about virtue. So some of the virtues are integrity, courage, passion, peace, self-awareness, self-care, those kind of things. So you're trying to identify, if I had this one thing, what could remove this block that's preventing me to get to what I want? And then it says, pretend that the virtue identified is actually what you want. So if I've realized that my lack of courage is preventing me from getting the promotion that I want, right? Maybe I know that I'm qualified for this job, but I'm too afraid to ask my boss for it. I go through this exercise and realize, okay, what I want is not a promotion, what I want is courage, right? And so then you'll repeat this step until you feel like you've actually gotten to the core thing. So I might go through all these false things that I think I want until I really get down to what I want. And so now I'm going to write down my statement in a very simple form of I want blah. So I want courage. So now after I've identified that thing, and again, this can take quite a while to even just identify what it is that I truly want. I'm going to I have to find a way to let people know that I am trying to achieve what I want. So I might be I might be in a situation where, let's say we'll go back to I want courage, right? And I show up in a situation where I really need to be practicing having that courage. I need to let my team know that when I try to avoid responsibility for running this meeting or doing whatever it is, I need you to help me do that, right? I'm trying to get courage. I want you to help support me. When you see me doing this action, help me to do what it is that I actually want to do. You need to identify what's the evidence of practicing that alignment. So what would it look like if I were able to do that? I need to write that down ahead of time. And then I'm going to ask for help. So let's see. These blocks and wants, so it needs to be specific and personal. So I might want all kinds of things, but there's probably something that I really and truly want. I need to identify that specific thing and start going after it. And so the whole point of this is one that doesn't directly play out in a team environment, except for the asking your team to support you in achieving whatever it is, right? And that's going to make you a better team member. So if I can identify some deficiency that I have, I'm going to let everyone on my team know, hey, I'm trying to get better at this. Right? So if I'm a disorganized person and I'm trying to implement getting things done, I might let everyone know, hey, I'm really trying to do this thing because I need organization. Hypothetically, speaking for myself here. So I'm going to let everyone know they're going to support me in that decision. So it's a very personal thing, but it becomes a team thing in that they're going to help me achieve what it is that I want to achieve. All right, we've got just a couple minutes left. So the Mule Decide, I already talked about that. You can hack your own protocol. You can watch for the App Store for your head. All right, we've got just a couple minutes left. I'm going to end with this last protocol. So we did make it through all of them. The perfection game. This is one of my favorite things to do. The perfection game is a way of getting feedback from your team in a way that is solely focused on improvement. So if I ask, what did you think about this thing that I did, and you go on and tell me how it sucked and it was stupid and it was boring, blah, 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 that's not actually helpful information to me, right? So the point of this is to say, well, what I did like about what you did is, you used a really great font in your presentation, right? Maybe that's all I have to say that's nice. Could be it. I'm going to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10 on how much I think I can help you improve that thing. So if you just presented me the most terrible presentation I've ever seen in my life, and I know that I have some more things to offer you, you're going to ask me to rate my performance. I'm going to say, well, it was a 5, right? And so I better have a whole bunch of things ready to tell you how you can improve. So I'm going to say it's a 5, and you're going to say, I'm going to say what I liked about your thing. You used a really great font. It's my favorite font that you have to use. So now the perfecter is, I'm going to say to the person who's asking for feedback, but to make it a 10, so I can't give them any other feedback. I can only say, I rated it a 5, I liked this, but to make it a 10, you really need to do these things. To make it a 10, I really would have liked to see the source of some of those numbers that you threw up there. To make it a 10, I would have used this other type of graph to show that information. Those kind of things. I'm not going to be giving you negative feedback. The only feedback I can provide you is ways that you could have improved upon what just happened. So I can't talk about what I didn't like. I can only tell you what it would take to make it a perfect thing for me. Right? So I can say, for it to be perfect, we have to do these things.
I'll just throw this out related. I heard something last week, maybe someone here knows more about it, that cognitively people can't rate 1 to 10, they can rate 1 to 5. Is anybody? No? Okay.
Yeah, I've heard similar things like that. So there's interesting things in here. So right here, so use ratings that reflect a scale of improvement rather than a scale of how much you liked the object. So I'm not telling you how much I liked it, I'm telling you how much more you can improve it to get to a 10 for me. Let's see. Yeah, so a rating of 5 means I can specifically describe how to make it at least twice as good. Right, so I need to be careful in the way that I evaluate that scale of improvement. If I give it a 9, it's probably because there's just some, if you just did this one thing, it would be better. If you did a terrible job, I better have some specific ways of telling you how it can be better. There's an interesting thing here that if I cannot specifically tell you what you could improve, what you could do to make it a 10, I have to give you a 10. Because I have no way of suggesting improvement to you. So I might not have liked it, but if I can't tell you how to improve it, I have to tell you it was a
10. Say 9, get someone else to do it.
So here's an interesting example that he gave. So I might ask you to rate the sound of my finger snapping, right? And he says that the ideal sound of a finger snap for me is one that is crisp, has sufficient volume, and startles me somewhat. To get a 10, you'd have to increase your crispness. So I'm saying your snap wasn't quite crisp enough for me. To be a 10, that's what it would be. So it's that kind of feedback. And it's really hard to give this type of feedback. It's easy to say, I didn't like this, and I didn't like that. But to actually tell someone how to get better, how to take what they have just shown you or done and actually improve upon it is very difficult. Which is why if you can't do it, you have to give them a 10. You have to say, I have no way of telling you how to improve what you've done. I think that's it for presentation. Any questions on the perfection game before we wrap it up?
Are you willing to do it for your...
I'm going to do it right now.
Yeah.
So what I would like is, we're now at the end of my performance. I would like to ask anybody here if you would like to play the perfection game with me.
Sure.
And rate on a scale of 1 to 10, how much you think I could improve? Would anybody like to give me that feedback?
I'll give you an 8. I'd say that I would put less on each slide. The slides were a little crowded, and at the beginning it was a little slow to move a bit faster at the beginning.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm going to give you a 9. I like the sequencing for the second portion that I saw. A little creative feedback. I think you could use more visual engagement. And as previously stated, I think your slide organization could use a little bit more.
Sure. Thank you. Awesome. Anybody else? Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Don't apologize.
I wanted to pull the projector back just a little to get it off that top thing the whole time. That's not what I do.
So to be a 10 for you, it would require seeing the entire slide. I did. I rolled it all the way down.
The only thing that continually hit me that I seem to have to constantly remind myself was the commitments we made at the beginning. So I don't know if they could be intertwined to kind of remind us, you committed to this, and that's what makes this work, you know?
Sure.
Something like that.
Thank you. Yeah, Jay?
A lot of great information.
Nope. On a scale of 1 to 10?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give
how much could be improved?
How much could be improved? Let's say about 4, 5.
Okay, so what did you like about it?
Well, I liked that there was looking at the team dynamics from different views. I would have...
So you want to make it a 10 for you?
I liked that it seems like it... I have it that this will work. I also have it that this all boils it back to the golden rule. And, you know, so those are the things that I liked. To improve it, I would have put in more examples, like real life examples, like, you know, Jade did this, Derek did this, and to really crystallize. Pardon me?
The Craigslist app you were mentioning, throw some of that out, that protocol helped facilitate getting through a specific hard problem, not going to lunch, or something that had value and significance.
So to make it a 10 for you, more real world examples.
Yeah, real world examples with real names, or not real names necessarily.
He just wants to know more about it.
Derek.
As long as my name doesn't end up in it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah.
I would say a 7. Dun, dun, dun. First, let me say what I liked about it. You didn't stutter a lot. You presented yourself well. You were flexible in allowing questions. Sometimes people say, wait till the end. That's dysfunctional socially, I think. You had some insights, I think, that were beneficial. To improve it, I would say more conceptual flexibility. It's kind of like drinking the Kool-Aid when I hear it. Summaries, too much information. The screen's a little bright when I look at it, so it's kind of hard to read back here, but where out of the angles of the light. Your snap sounded a little tinny. And the specific examples, like less than 30 seconds, tell a story where you had to overcome a difficult problem and this facilitated it.
Great. Thank you. That's a great feedback, right? I can learn a whole lot from that.
If I compared you to, I'm comparing you to your potential, if I compared you to another person, a regular schmo, you'd be a 10.
Well, that's what this is all about. How much could I improve from what you just saw? Right? You're not comparing me to anybody else. You're saying what you think you could contribute to help me improve what I just said. Awesome. Anything else? Great. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. Excuse me. And I encourage you guys to take a deeper look into the core protocols, the core commitments, and see how they can help your teams. Thank you guys.
Thank you.